word in English. For example, the parrot is flying home. But we must ask, why? Why is the most common word in English? And the answer is because. In English, we use articles a lot. So let's look at how to use and how to not use definite and indefinite articles. The is actually the definite article, but first of all, we're going to look at the indefinite article. We've seen this before, because, and in the middle of because is a, and a is the indefinite article, or a. We also, of course, use an, and I think we should explain that in the first place. So, we only use an when the indefinite article goes before a vowel sound. Let me explain that. So we say a dog. The word dog begins with d, which is a consonant sound. So we use the indefinite article a dog. A crisis. Crisis starts with a k, a consonant sound. A crisis. And then we have a rather unusual musical instrument, a xylophone. A xylophone starts with a z, which is a consonant sound. But if something starts with a vowel sound, we use an. An apple. An apple. Apple starts with the vowel sound a. Or we might have an opinion. An opinion. Or we might have an X. Now this is a bit strange. The letter X is of course a consonant. But when we say it out loud, it starts with the vowel sound X. So we might use the sentence, the word xylophone begins with an X. And when we say X, we begin with E. So the important thing is that it's actually the sound, not the letter. Let me explain what I mean by that. We would say, for example, a union. The word union begins with a vowel, the vowel U. But when we say it, it begins with a consonant sound, y, union, a union. So we use the a indefinite article. But the word our, it begins with a consonant H. But when we listen to it, we don't say the H, we say ow, our. So we use an hour. Even though the word begins with a consonant, the sound is a vowel sound. So that's the most important thing to remember. When a word starts with a consonant sound, use a, and only when it starts with a vowel sound, use an. And don't worry about the actual letter it begins with, worry about the sound it begins with. Okay, so that's a and an. So the big question is, when do we use the indefinite article? But in fact, it's probably more important to begin by understanding when do we not use the indefinite article. So the answer to that is we don't use the indefinite article with plural nouns. So let me give you an example. We would say, I ate a cherry yesterday, if we ate one cherry. That's possible, but it's quite unlikely. We tend to eat cherries in 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, depending how hungry we are. So we could say I ate a cherry yesterday, but we would normally say I ate cherries yesterday. And when we use the plural noun cherries, we do not use the indefinite article. Okay, uh, so we use a with a singular noun, but not with a plural noun like cherries. What we could also do, of course, is say something like, I ate some cherries yesterday, and to quantify and we'll look a little bit quantify a little later. So we don't use it with plural nouns, and we don't use it with uncountable nouns. So for example, here we have a sentence, I like clothing, which is loose and comfortable. Clothing is an uncountable noun. I'm going to put in a word of caution here. Be careful with uncountable nouns. In general, there's a lot of nouns out there which we may think of as uncountable, but which we actually use frequently in a countable sense. So what we're actually saying here is we don't use the indefinite article when we're using nouns in the uncountable sense. And I'll explain that a little again later on. Now, so when do we use the indefinite article? We don't use it with plurals. We don't use it with uncountable nouns. Well, we use a or an, the indefinite article, when we mention something for the first time. So let's have a look at that. I just saw a parrot flying by. I just saw a parrot flying by. This is the first time we've mentioned the parrot. We've seen the parrot before, but this is the first time we've mentioned the parrot. So we say, I just saw a parrot flying by. We could say, I am going for a walk. We might go for a walk every day. We might walk regularly. But this is the first time we're talking about this particular walk. So we say, I am going for a walk. Or we might say a longer sentence, something like, that badly parked car is in an awkward spot. Now, the interesting thing here is the noun is spot, and that begins with a consonant. But what we've actually created here is what we call a noun phrase. Awkward is an adjective, an awkward spot. Awkward spot is a noun phrase. The noun phrase begins with the vowel sound o, awkward. So we use an. That badly parked car is in an awkward spot. That badly parked car is in an awkward spot. So that's when we use an, a, or an, is when we mention something for the first time. We also use it when someone or something is a member of a group. So let's explain that. We might say, for example, I was a Boy Scout when I was young. The Scouting movement is a huge worldwide organization. And if you were a member of it, you would always say, I was a Boy Scout when I was young, a member of a group. This is an oak tree. Oak begins with the vowel sound O, so we use an, but oak is part of the group. First of all, it's part of the group of trees, and then it's part of the group of oak trees. So we would always say, this is an oak tree, because it's something which is a member of a group. The next one is, he is a musician. Now, he might actually be a member of a group, of a pop group, of a musical group. It doesn't really matter. He is a member of a group. He's a member of a group of musicians. So he is a musician. He is a musician. And then the last one, the musician might be his job or it might be a hobby, but you use this also for people when we're talking about their jobs. So my mother used to be a nurse. She is a member of the group of nurses. So we use a or an when someone or something is a member of a group. And then the third one is, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier, we use the indefinite article a or an when you want to quantify something. So I had an apple for my lunch. We use a or an to quantify one. You could say I had the apple or the apples for my lunch, or we could say I had apples for my lunch. If you say I had an apple for my lunch, you mean you had one apple. We wouldn't normally say I had one apple for my lunch. We would normally say I had an apple for my lunch. You could say I had one apple for my lunch if you were trying to explain where all the apples had disappeared to. And you were saying it wasn't me, I had one apple for my lunch. But normally we say I had an apple for my lunch. But we can also say things like there are a lot of oak trees in the park, or there was a little food left after the party. So we can use that kind of phrase with the indefinite article to quantify something, but to quantify it in a non-specific way. A lot or a little, a bit, a huge amount. It doesn't matter. We use the indefinite article when trying to quantify in this uh, non-specific way. So, in summary, we use an when we mention something for the first time, but only if it is a countable noun and it is singular, not plural. Or we use it when we want to indicate that a thing or person, again singular, is part of a group, including jobs, sports, types of tree, for example. And we use a or an when we want to indicate a quantity of one or of a non-specific amount. So we can say an apple, meaning one, or a lot, a few, a bit, something like that, to indicate a non-specific amount that we want to talk about in a sentence where we use the indefinite article in this way. So that's it. That's the indefinite article. Now we'll move on to talk about the definite article.